Hi guys, we're back and I'm back again with Miss P. Ray out of Chicago from the chicagored.org. So we're staying on this migrant crises, especially in Chicago, honey, because they have always been ground zero for these illegal migrant crises. However, P. Ray, you're coming back on and you're going to tell us an interesting story of an incident that took place with an illegal against an American citizen.
Okay, so this summer there was a guy. Well, let's start here. This past summer, Chicago had a terrorist issue. Chicago is a very segregated city. We love our segregation here in the city of Chicago. Please leave us alone. We're segregated by ethnicity. And so the Jewish community is on the north side in the Rogers Park area. A gentleman from Mauritania, which is an Arab West African country. It's the southernmost Arab country or the northernmost Arab country, or however you want to put it. It's right by Senegal. It's the barrier between Black Africa and Arab Africa. This gentleman from Mauritania came in illegally or had an encounter with border security in 2023, and they let him go with the catch and release into the country. That gentleman came up here to the great city of Chicago, went to Rogers Park, and literally mapped out the entire neighborhood. He knew where their synagogues were, where their community centers were, where the rabbi lived, where the people lived. On one particular day, there was a gentleman, an Orthodox Jewish man, walking down the street with his curls dangling in the air, enjoying the Chicago sunshine. This Mauritanian man popped out the bushes and gunned him down in cold blood in broad daylight. The man then began to run. He ran from the police. He shot at the police for a while, and then they captured him. They took him to Cook County Jail. He was there for about a month or so, and then he committed suicide by hanging himself. The Sanctuary City Ordinance is attracting terrorism to the city of Chicago. Al-Qaeda has identified our city as a target of terrorism in 2017 and in 2021 in their magazine called Inspire. In Inspire, they specifically said that they want their members to start using pickup trucks as a weapon of mass destruction to mow down as many people as quickly as possible. They also taught them how to make ghost guns and how to make pipe bombs. The reason I mentioned Inspire is because the backdrop for that story was the Chicago skyline, and that's how we know that we've been identified. The Sanctuary City Ordinance has magnetized our city for illegal immigration, which means that anybody from around the world knows that if they get to the city of Chicago, they will be provided with sanctuary from the federal authorities, as well as housing, food, you name it. The Chicago taxpayers are going to pay for it for you. And so this is why we are now pushing, or continuously pushing, for the city council to amend the Sanctuary City Welcoming Ordinance.
So did this story ever hit mainstream? Because I haven't heard of it.
So it was a big deal here in Chicago, but just for a little while. I went down to City Hall the day that the Jewish community went through this. So they had their yellow ribbons. They were talking about anti-Semitism and so on and so forth. But this is also a community that pushes for sanctuary laws. So when I go there Wednesday, Lord willing, I'm going to specifically speak to Alderman Silverstein and let her know that she needs to stand with Chicago Red as we try to get rid of the sanctuary ordinance, because her community is the one being targeted. They're not coming to the west side of Chicago to kill American Negroes. No, they want to come steal our swag, okay? However, they're coming here to harm them. And so as the alderman of that ward, she has to do her due diligence to amend the ordinance in order to protect not only them, but us as well. Because what they could also do is start to attack federal targets downtown. And we know for a fact that the number one employer for Black people is the federal government. So, we got Black people down there in the federal building. We got Black people down in the county building. We got people down there at City Hall. So it's not a Jewish issue. It's an American issue. And again, Al-Qaeda just showed us that what they're capable of on New Year's down there in New Orleans. The exact thing that guy, I think his name is Jabbar, the exact thing that Jabbar did is what they outlined for them to do in this magazine, which means that the jihad has started here in the U.S. This is not a game. A lot of times people use the Venezuelans as a distraction in a way, because they're poor people, they're from South America, they speak Spanish, they're coming from a failed socialist state. So there's a lot of ways that you can build empathy around those people. But I'm talking about the Mauritanians who are here. I'm talking about the people who are here from Al Qaeda. I'm talking about the people who are getting radicalized by Al Qaeda, which is a foreign terroristic entity. We have to focus on the business of the American people, and we're not doing that because we're trying to look like we are virtuous people and saying, well, we're going to help the people, and we got to help the immigrants and the refugees. No, you got to help the American people first, because we are in the middle of World War III, and these people are serious about this invasion.
Well, I'm surprised that, that district was pushing for more sanctuary city laws, meaning they wanted more policies to protect the term sanctuary city, or more strict
to protect the people who come here because of the sanctuary city. And what they're pushing for is for protection for Al Qaeda. Literally, like, Miss Dana, I don't understand how I'm the only person who sees this. That's not my job. I wasn't elected for this, but I am a citizen, and I can see that this is not a game. As I share with you all the time, I watch the war stuff all night, every night. So I'm watching it from different angles. I'm in different accounts. I'm reading the comments, what people are doing, what they're saying, and they're coming to get us, y'all. They are here to get us right now. Now. Those fires in California, yes, they are naturally occurring, but they just found a guy with a flamethrower, and he was setting fires. And people are like, where is he from? How do we know him? We don't know him. They're going to attack our infrastructure. We can start looking at the water places, the grid, the electricity grid. We need to start looking at the forest fires. Again, we have been starting so many wars with people that now we have millions upon millions upon millions of people who want to get their lick back. And the sanctuary city ordinance is making it easy for them to do it. Even if President Trump closes the border and says, okay, nobody else gets to come in. Those people are already here. They're already in the city of Chicago. They're already getting a food stamp card. They already have an apartment. And the city of Chicago is actively hiding them. So it's like they're shielding them, and they want this to happen. And I want to share that with my mayor, that if anything happens on a national domestic terror, on an international terrorist level, this is your fault, because you're the one who got on TV and told all the illegal people from around the country, if you are in a place where you think that they're going to help Tom Homan, come to Chicago and we're going to shield you. So he has just invited more terrorists to come here and hurt more Chicagoans.
When this incident happened, what was the response from the Jewish community? Because this is where it took place at. What was their initial response?
Initially, they knew that it was an act of terrorism. They said that they wanted it to be declared a hate crime. And Brandon Johnson took his time on calling it a hate crime. They were like, hey, Brandon, why aren't you saying that this is a hate crime? Why aren't you just saying that this is an act of violence? And they were like, oh, well, we don't know. We have to figure it out. Then they started to say, well, this was a West African man. And so typically when we think of West Africans, we think of, brown-skinned people like ourselves. However, when they say he was from Mauritania, I'm like, that's not a black man, my friends. That's not a black man. So they did everything that they could to avoid saying that this was Islamic terrorism. And then at the end, when the man started talking and they went to the taxpayer provided room that he's currently in and found all the maps and all the plans and everything that he was going to do, that's when they were forced to acknowledge that this was a hate crime. But they were very hesitant to call it terrorism, because if they were to really promote it as terrorism, then we would have a very easy case to get rid of the sanctuary city ordinance. But the Chicago Teachers Union has already made a deal with the Venezuelans that they're going to be able to come up here and thrive.
And the problem with that is you can easily have family members sneak in with you, with that type of connection of employment, and just wreak havoc. Venezuelans, Islamic extremists, whoever, the Chinese. It's a lot of Chinese extremists that are already here as well. So I would say this, that's going to be the challenge for Tom Homan, for the Trump administration, once his administration is inaugurated on January 20th, is how do you weed out, get out, and kick out the terrorists who are here already?
So I like to align this with the analogy of a bowl of soup. Say, for instance, we're making some soup, we're sick. We get some beef stock, some beef chuck roast, potatoes, tomatoes, carrots, bay leaves, Maji powder, Creole slap your mama seasoning, and we cook it all up. We let it simmer. It's smelling good. If we put 2 drops of poison in that pot, Dana, the whole pot is poison, which means everybody gotta go. We don't have time to figure out who's a terrorist, who's not a terrorist, who's a criminal, who's just a person looking for a better life. No, when you chose to crawl through a hole in the gate, that was a criminal act, and therefore you have to leave. Okay, I'm sorry that you went through all of this and you're a good person. You bought a house and you paying whatever you're paying, but because you walked in that same hole that those terrorists walked in, everybody that came through the hole has to leave. That's the only way that we're going to be able to get this done properly. Because again, these people are fighting us at this very moment. That man was gunned down in broad daylight, walking to the synagogue, minding his own business by an Islamic terrorist that was allowed to come in our country by Joe Biden. Why do we deserve that in the city of Chicago?
Absolutely right. Well, again, thank you, P. Ray, for coming on. And listen, we're going to be hearing and seeing more of you, not just on my platform, but throughout mainstream media as well. So, and I really do appreciate everything that you're doing for your organization and for the city of Chicago.
Thank you, Ms. Dana, for having me.
All right. Bye. That's it. And record.
Dana with the data. Dana with the data.